I mean, honestly, I like him. I mean, like, I know when you're in the he'll throw pot shots at you, whatever, but that's all just politics.
Running for president, what do you think you learned going through that?
Well, I think there's two things. One, it was just a unique situation because you had a former president running, and so it wasn't like you're running against other governors or senators, right? It's like he had a certain hold, and then they were indicting him all the time. And so our voters see this abuse of the legal system to go after him, and that really created a strong base of support for him that was really immovable and emotional. I mean, I'd have people in these early states tell me, you are going to be a great president. I think you're going to be better than Reagan. But I'm for Trump this time, but I'll vote for you next time. Well, obviously with that, that's just a difficult mountain to climb. If someone thinks you could be a Reagan type figure in the Republican Party and they still ain't voting for you because they're voting for Trump, you just know that. So that is just one thing that was just unique. If it was just people that hadn't been president before doing that, it would have just been a much different scenario and environment. But then just nationally, the media is way more important in a presidential than it is in like a statewide. How do you get known by people who may not, you can go on Fox News, although Fox had kind of gone, on the other side. They weren't necessarily giving me coverage at that. They had made that editorial decision, which is fine. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. Do you go on this podcast? Do you do this? You do that? Just running commercials in a presidential, that's not enough. So what's the approach to the media? My approach to the media prior to that in Florida worked very well because I'm like, you know what? These legacy media, these are partisan leftists. I ain't dealing with them.
I was going to say, you had a bit of a complicated relationship.
Well, I'm not dealing with them, and they're going to ask me questions, and if they ask dumb questions, I'm going to hit them, I'm going to do that. And then I had the whole conservative ecosystem. Yeah, Governor, that's our man. And they would elevate you. When 60 Minutes tried to do a hit piece on us, which was bogus, and they got big time criticism for it.
I saw you went after the correspondent in real time.
Well, and what happened though is you had Democrats coming out in Florida saying this is a lie. Like the idea that somehow they did anything wrong by working with Publix was a lie. And so it's very rare that you would get opposition politicians coming out to the defense of someone in the other party, but it was that bad. Well, when you get into the presidential, a lot of those people were either silent or they were backing Trump, right? So I had to engage with those, and I didn't realize that until much later. But then towards the end of the process, I'm doing town halls on CNN. I'm doing stuff with NBC. I'm doing all this stuff, and I do think that that's something that you have to do. You just have to be out there. Who cares if they ask you unfair questions? That's just the nature of it. Honestly, we're at the point now where people hate the media so much. When they ask an unfair question, people don't like them for doing it, right? They want substance. And so to be able to do it, and so just think where we are now, where we were 4 years ago when I got reelected, media landscape, to 2024 changed, and now it's changed even more.
You were obviously leading for a while,
Second behind Trump. I was never beating Trump.
Well, but
I was the one guy that they thought could potentially give him a run.
What was it like for you, just kind of on a personal front, when the outcome wasn't what you were hoping for?
So I had all this stuff, the media and how that played out. Some of it I should have engaged, some of it, I had people in kind of the right side who had been for me before, who I wasn't getting play from. So I'm like, well, how the hell do I get any traction? So I went to Iowa and I was like showing up at places. I'd meet with like 20 people at a time, right? Trying to say, okay, let's build it from the grassroots. And then we had Iowa and, I came in second place by a considerable distance. So I'm just looking at it and I'm like, you know what? I had so many people tell me, we love you. We think you're awesome. We think you're gonna be president one day, but we got to go with Trump. And so you either accept that message or you don't. And so I exited, I endorsed him, and I just moved on. Like literally the next day, I'm out doing press conferences here about my legislative agenda for that.
Oh, come on, it has to bruise the ego a little
not really,
bit, though, right?
It doesn't because
you busted your ass for a long time to get to this place. You're a competitive
It
guy.
is what it is, though.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's just like, you'd have to know what you can control and what you can't control, right? I saw when they started indicting him, I saw his numbers go up. It just was what it was, right?
To what extent do you think you should have been more aggressive in attacking him?
Well, that's the thing. So we're friends now.
Yeah.
he tells me, he's like, you should have attacked me. He's like, you never attacked me. And part of the reason I didn't, I mean, honestly, I like him. I mean, like, I know when you're in the he'll throw pot shots at you, whatever, but that's all just politics. You know, I was aligned with him, you know, in his first term. I was aligned with him on most of his major policies. We did have a difference over COVID. I mean, he obviously kept Fauci on. I was a big critic of Fauci. So there were some.
Well, and when he said he won the 2020 election and not Biden, like you said, President Biden won. So it's not as if you've always fallen in line.
Well, but
with
that's actually one time where I criticized him because the CARES Act had the mail ballots, right? Like, I'm not a fan of mass mail balloting. I think that is a problem. I think it was a problem in Georgia. But he signed the bill, and I said, well, wait a minute, you know, he signed the bill. But be that as it may, I mean, the reality is you can either just sit there and say, oh, woe is me, I didn't win. Or you could just say, you know what? And I saw the writing on the wall. I mean, let's just be clear. I knew I'd probably come in second in Iowa. The question is, could I come in a strong second and then maybe have the coalescing? And when it was more of a weak second, it just is what it is. I had a great resume. Certainly Republican voters they appreciated what I had done. They thought I would be a good candidate or that. They just thought it was his time to get another shot. That was just the nature of it. There really wasn't anything I could do to change that.
What do you remember from the December 2017 Air Force One flight with him?
Well, so, you know, he had been somebody, I didn't really know him before he got elected. I campaigned with him in 2016. But I watched The Apprentice. I mean, like, I always thought when I was a kid, if you asked me who's a rich guy, I would have said Trump, right? He had a big brand and a big persona, and I was positive on it. I know some people aren't, I was positive on it. So he gets in, and they're going after him on the Russia stuff, you know, which was a hoax, right? But at the beginning, Washington believed in the Russia collusion. Official Washington believed. A lot of Republicans in Congress, Democrats in the bureaucracy.
Although, in fairness, I will say, at the beginning, you would listen to how he would talk about Russia and President Putin, and it would have you scratching your head a little bit.
That may be true in terms of how he approached it, but that's a separate question of whether he was doing collusion, right? So I'm going out there saying, there's not collusion. And I was one of the few. I mean, you had maybe 5 or 6 of us. And, you know, he would call me and say, hey, thanks, you know, I appreciate that. Because he was not getting a lot of support. Now, like every Republican, it's like, oh, collusion, all this other stuff. But at the time, those investigations were actually launched by Republicans. House investigation, Senate investigation, and then Rosenstein put Mueller in to do the Mueller investigation. So I developed a relationship from him with that. And so, you know, he was asking me, what do you want to do, all this? And I said, well, I may run. And so I just said, you know, here, you know, would you do a tweet for me? And he's like, I'll do a tweet. And nothing happened. Then like 2-3 weeks later, you know, he put out a tweet saying this guy would be an amazing governor. He's a great guy, whatever. And then that kind of gave me some added credibility. The people that knew me in Florida, I was their guy, right? I mean, but I was one congressman of 27. And so then you start to kind of do that. So, yeah, I mean, it just is what it is.